Beautiful.
All right. Well, thank you, David, for being on our podcast here at Crowd and Chakra. Everybody, we have our lovely guest, which is also a good friend of mine, David Solomon. He is the author of his book that is recently on Amazon. That is Magic is Real. And maybe you could speak a little bit about what the book is. And today we're going to talk about courage and how to embody courage in your daily life. Yes.
Be a Gryffindor.
Gryffindor, yes.
Yes, God is blessed.
Yes.
So Ken, it's great to be on the show. My focus with my book and Time for You Here is to give mystical advice that is practically useful in the day-to-day scientifically integrated world. So how is that done? How have I lived that purpose, and what have I provided in this first of 7 books to help people do that? So courage is a great thing that you ask. I love that you brought up with that, because it was a leap of faith that took courage in my humble opinion about myself to be on this path. I've been an entrepreneur most of my life. My first job was at 14 in a cool museum-y video arcadey place, and I made manager and had keys within 4 months, started my first company a few years after that, and just business after business after business. And while I've been a student and practitioner of magic my entire life, living a fully spiritual life and dedicating career to spirit and magic. And magic, as I define it, is the science of applied consciousness. And as Arthur C. Clarke defined it, sufficiently advanced technology that we don't make sense of, so we call it magic. And magic is also the good fun connotations of it, usually not fantasy, but when we want to have fun through transmission, I'll do some fictional stuff, which people like. And in fact, the second chapter of my book is called Epic Sorcerer Battle, and the whole thing is just battle magic, and it's delightful. So, I was on Richard Branson's island, Necker Island, with an education platform I was building that used AI to help people learn new skills and become employed really quickly if software upgrades, AI, machine learning, robotics made them obsolete to the point where they lost work or lost income. And I had invested years of my life into this. I had all the startup experience. It was lucrative. I had funding offers. I was with, A-list startup people like Richard Branson's Island. That's, pretty good. If you're an entrepreneur and you're looking at, what people are you around? Are you with people who are visionaries, who care about improving the world? Obviously, the money thing has to be there. And around all these people, I noticed, regardless of what they were doing and their alignment, some really good things, I didn't feel fully aligned with full integrity and authenticity to myself, building a software company that didn't have a spiritual component, or doing anything with my time, that was a serious endeavor. And building a company, taking money for a company is a serious endeavor. And so I stopped and I let it go. And I told my wonderful co-founder at the time, beautiful human named Renat Gavatov, that I couldn't keep working on this. I had to devote to a spiritual path, whatever that was. And facing the unknowns of income, of timelines, of specifics, and just knowing I had to serve in a spiritual way with full integrity, not knowing if that was be celibate and live in a cave, didn't feel right. Try to emulate Gandhi, didn't feel right. And so over time, tried out all these things. What does it mean to live a spiritual life? How is spirituality defined? And so fast forwarding to about 6 months after that, the title for this book, Magic is Real, How to Create Reality, Manifest Miracles, and Make Spirituality Fun Again, was the core. Like, I like having fun. I like living a full life with all human experiences. And most spiritual thought leaders now are very calm and placid and gentle. And there's a few who are kind of fierce, like Matt Kahn, and there's a few who are kind of grounded, like Ray Maor. They took on their traits just a little bit then. But most live in their upper chakras. And so making spirituality fun, I think, liberated me to have the courage to do what felt right in an authentic way. And I think courage isn't just about making yourself do something you feel you have to do, but figuring out where your intrinsic motivation is. And if something feels scary but has to be done, and you are the one to do it, one arguable definition of courage, it doesn't mean it has to be tough. And it doesn't mean we have to make it harder. If it's hard anyway, let's find a way to make it sustainable.
Right. I love that you're talking about this, because so many times, if I'm starting up a business, or I am a lot of people that listen to this podcast are afraid of embodying a spirituality and incorporating that within their business, or they're afraid that, oh, it's all woo-woo, or it's not as real as they think it's going to be. But going into the realm of spirituality and blending it in their daily life, it's starting to become a big part of self-development now. And I think it's always been a huge part of it for me personally, in my own personal development, in my own life. It's always been a huge component of that. But there's a majority of people that are venturing into their own thing and stepping into their own power, but they're not quite sure on how do I say this, get into their own ability to be courageous enough to deliver that message that they are here to be on earth for, and they're not quite sure on how to do that. And I love that you spoke about that.
Do you want to have a few exercises for it so people can immediately say, well, I want to do that. Give me a few things to do right now.
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Beautiful.
Why not?
Beautiful.
Perks of being a podcast host.
Nice. Yeah. I have full dynamic power over how reality goes this next hour.
Well, we all do. We all have that capacity within all of us. It's just a matter of, how do I go about some of these things? But there's so many tools out there that we can use, but it's just a matter of having the ability and knowledge on how to do that.
Right. And so the knowledge of how to do embodiment, for example, there's a chapter in my book called Foundations of Your Magical Practice. And I think with anything, we need to know our foundations. If you want to launch a rocket ship to the moon, and it's any year, you need to have a stable foundation so the thing doesn't fall over and explode.
Right.
If you want to do Tough Mudder or do a triathlon or do martial arts or something physically intense or mentally intense, you need a foundation of skills, of biochemistry, of mental and emotional health, of well-being, maybe social support, of knowledge. And if you don't have enough foundation, your temple can crumble.
Right.
And so, even if you have a levitating temple in the sky, your foundation is whatever helps it levitate, whether it's material science or super magical powers or both, because really they're one and the same, to use Thor's words and Arthur C. Clarke's words. So what is embodiment? So one foundation of that is, what is a body, right? Are we fully in the awareness that a body is something we have created and continuously create? We have chosen as a soul to keep certain memories and awarenesses. And that's also part of the infrastructure of the world. Just like growing up, you get a bike with training wheels. You don't, learn all the technical data. You don't melt the plants and create the rubber to ship the tires overseas and get a bike. No, your folks or whoever helps raise you hopefully gives you a bike with training wheels, and all the details of how the bike was designed, created, delivered, and pitched for you are done for you. So when we incarnate into a body, what are the things that are done for us? Because we're all one, so we have to look at different dimensions.
Right.
Below non-duality, which is unity, which is there's no you or me. Below that, there is duality. So in duality, what is it? Who is it that helps you get this body? What is the body? What are you as a soul? So I think considering embodiment, when you define those things, you can learn, oh, as a soul, I am in or out of my body. And to use a chakra model, because it has wonderful connotations for physical, mental, and spiritual and psychological health. If you're only embodied in your upper chakras, as a lot of people on the path are, and you're not super grounded, as a lot of methods people use in this path prevent them from being and staying grounded. And there's ways of re-getting grounded by having bare feet on the grass, things like that. But if you're only in your upper chakras, maybe you can sing, maybe you can have great ideas, maybe you can channel, but if you're not fully embodied, then you're not here.
Right.
And so one of the reasons I feel Tantra is getting popular is it's helping us heal our sexual wounds, get in our whole body, get rid of shame and guilt related to sexuality, really get in touch with any body images we have or any body issues we have, like, why am I not fully accepting of this body and knowing of it to have it be the form and function I want? What are the blocks there? So working on that karma. And then, of course, as we go through that, we see, the scandals or the people who, maybe 89% of the time they're giving high value, and 11% of the time, as they're learning how to integrate their humanity and spirit, they do something inappropriate, and then there's a scandal, or a school has to get shut down, or whatever. They're human, they're learning too. For some the ratio isn't so high, and for some they abuse their position. But we're learning as a culture what does it mean to be embodied, sexually, physically, emotionally? What does it mean to be into your heart? If you're not fully grounded and your heart is open and your third eye is kind of open, but you don't have clarity, your crown isn't open, your lower chakras aren't integrated, you don't have a strong core, a strong will, maybe there's some slave energies in your field for whatever reasons, then you might be really empathic, but you may not be able to turn it off. And if you don't know what the astral body is, you might merge. So you might have somebody who raised you, or somebody who made a strong impression on you in life, a partner, a close friend, a sibling, and you would always try to please them, be codependent, merge with them. And so while your heart was open, if you weren't fully integrated, it causes all this stuff. And so to be embodied and to embody courage, first is like, well, what is the psychology and the body of the mind-body complex? How do neurotransmitters, biochemistry, the astral field, the health of the chakras, and your understanding of all this, your mental understanding, the rational maps and bridges, and then your spiritual understanding, your intuitive knowing, and then another second chakra quality, your ability to trust that and flow with it, rather than need the mind to define everything, and then have to deal with the monkey mind and Zen training and all that. So to be embodied, we have all these foundational skills that you have to be well.
Right.
I wasn't embodied for a really long time because I was not well for the reasons relating to my own life, this incarnation, and others. And so figuring out how to heal my body so it was comfortable for me to be in my body came first. And that I think is one of the reasons why it makes sense to understand, heal yourself, then try to heal the world. Because if you don't, going back to a statement earlier, if you go super deep in the spiritual path and wake up, but you're not grown up, you're not mature psychologically, socially, physically, emotionally, then you may get access to certain abilities which other people don't have. And you could use those abilities to make up for your lack of being developed. And I think the classic example of this is seeing people in power, financial power, power of authority, physical power and strength, as you see in bullying. And those people haven't integrated and embodied their heart fully and other aspects fully. So they rely on that power as a crutch to make up for whatever they perceive themselves to be lacking, leading suffering. And then either that continues and people get hurt, or eventually they learn to surrender and maybe maintain that strength, but not abuse it.
Right. And I think I love that you spoke about this, because it is all just being in awareness of where your open chakras are, where, I have the most powerful solar plexus chakra opening. And so I have all these energies that are emanating, and I might be really, really good at this one particular thing, but I have problems speaking up at work, or I have problems thinking about creative ideas. So my third eye might be blocked, or so it's important to understand what's going on with your own self-embodiment. And I love that you spoke about that, because a lot of people aren't quite sure as to what's going on with them. There's a lot of energetic shifts that are happening on Earth right now. Culturally, we're just changing altogether. And how do we all help each other in the same space, right? And this is what it's all about. And this is part of the big reason why I wanted to do this podcast, so that I could have a channel for everybody to just learn a little bit more about what you have to share with some of these ideas and philosophies that have been around for so long, but it used to be so guarded with some of these knowledges in the astral field and the esoteric.
Well, it's actually quite important to be guarded, if I might. So, the reason I didn't just say, here's to be super powerfully, courageously embodied in the beginning, is because I care to teach magic, teach how to work this field with responsibility. And so if you think about a good martial arts instructor, by good, I mean somebody of integrity, somebody of skill, and somebody with morals that, for better or worse, you agree with, because morality is generally relative. It's not in integrity for a good martial arts teacher to teach a student who wants to be a bully, or be an assassin just because, right? Or wants to take revenge on somebody, and that's all. And so I'd say I have to say in most cases, because I care to embody truth, but most cases are pretty much applying to pretty much everybody who is it. So, if I were to say, well, here's how to have courage that's perfect no matter what, I don't know what people are using courage for. And so this gets us to something that I do in everything I make content of, is that holographically for all of the content, including this that I provide, it can only be used for purposes to spread love and trust and truth. And anybody who would want to use it for fear or to cause suffering is stripped from all power, and all of what I say will be useless and unintelligible to them. And so in the past, and maybe that applies to a few viewers here, and they need that as safeguards. I swore 2 oaths binding my free will because I didn't want to let my power get away with me until I was psychologically at a certain point, because magical power is like physical power. If you know how to wield it, and if it's strong, you can use it to help or to harm. And while nobody viewing this hopefully will use it to harm, in most definitions of harm, and that's a whole other sidetrack. Like, what does it mean to be responsible and to own your path, and to realize, okay, you want to master this path, you want to master figuring out how to live in this world in integrity. And what does that mean? Maybe you can't speak your truth at work because your throat chakra is blocked. So you look into healing and strengthening related to that, like singing, speaking affirmations, speaking the truth, owning up to lies you may have told, unless those lies cause less harm. Like, you have a mentally ill person close to you, and you avoided speaking the ideal truth to them because they couldn't take it and it would destroy their stability, and it wasn't truth that would help them grow, it would help shut them down. Versus maybe you can tell the truth at work because it's scary, because maybe you can't, I'm saying, because you grew up with a person like that. But at work, maybe your boss, maybe a coworker needs you to be real, and you're afraid, and so you have to embody courage, like speak fully and truly, not stutter and not make eye contact and be unsure, because then that'll carry the transmission of the truth and they can't receive it. But to actually be there and say, hey, that was inappropriate. Hey, I believe in you. You can do better. Hey, I know I voted for and have worked on this cause, but it's not the right cause for these reasons. And those can be difficult things to say. And in certain environments, saying those can lose people jobs. And so looking at when is it appropriate to stand in courage, really takes the intellectual maturity to look at the whole situation. What are the consequences and impact of that? If you are a single parent supporting a kid and you say that truth because you want to embody truth in all forms, but you lose your job, somebody else loses their job, both of you have kids that'll, end up in poverty, suffering, and it's a challenge that you can barely overcome, and you'll revert back to certain adaptations to stress like substance abuse that you do when you're overwhelmed. And because of that, you can't get back in an upward spiral and find a job of truth. Then in that case, the truth is you're aware of something, you need to communicate it, maybe in a journal, maybe to somebody trusted outside of the company, and find out, wow, why did I create this circumstance where I can't express my truth? Let me change my circumstances in a safe, sustainable way so that all the time I can embody truth. In the Harry Potter series, J.K. Rowling was a fabulous mystery school teacher. All the time talked about truth and lies and when it was all right for Harry to lie, in what circumstances. Harry was a messianic figure in that series, and he ultimately was responsible for saving a lot of people from slavery, imprisonment for false circumstances, torture, and death. So I think you can say in many of those situations it's justified to lie, but for a lot of us, discernment, I think, is the key. And that comes with maturity, and that comes with making mistakes and having good mentors and all of it.
Right. And speaking of mentors, it really does have a lot to do with somebody already walking that path, that has already been there, done that. And then you could really save a lot of pain and suffering for yourself if you know that somebody has already experienced something. My grandfather, when he was still alive, he's this amazing man. He's a businessman and he's very smart. And I remember him telling me before he passed that do not try to experience everything in life. And I was like, what, Grandpa? Like, what do you mean don't try to experience everything? Like, I want to experience everything in life. Life is so beautiful. But the way that he said it was not in a way that you want to experience everything that is related to like pain and suffering, because when you see somebody else that has already walked in the same path, you don't want to make the same mistakes of that person. So you actually have seen a lesson from afar, and getting a mentor or, you know, reading the Magic is Real book, you can get a lot of insights from other experiences or learn more of something that you don't know already, that somebody has already known or has researched. And I think this is
you can learn from their mistakes as opposed to have to go through your own suffering and obstacles.
Right. But not only that, it's also learning new information that you know has been there, but then you weren't quite sure where to look. And those people can go and teach you a lot about yourself. And so the biggest thing that we all have to do in this time space reality is to learn more about ourselves. If we learn more about ourselves and where we are in this particular situation, let's say there's a scenario at work that somebody is encountering or facing, how do I embody courage? Do I tell the truth and speak up, or do I not in that one particular scenario? It really, like you said, it comes down to being mature about the situation. Is what are the outcomes, the possible outcomes that could happen from this one decision? And from that one decision, it could go in many different directions. And so if you look at the hologram of this place, you could have a ripple effect based on your decision for your own life. But not only that, everybody that is connected within your circle could also be affected by just that one decision. So it really has a lot to do with discernment. But that now that we have so many things that are out in the world on the internet, and that we're becoming more and more connected, David, how do you discern from information that is coming in your field of awareness based on, magic is real, right? So how do you discern from all the information that is out there?
That's a great question, Kat. And it's funny because initially when you were saying always learning, what came up is like, oh, information is doubling consistently.
Yes.
And so then you followed up with that very true statement. The image that arises is when a car is driving at night, and imagine an animated visual of this. You have a street and you have a road and everything's dark and you're in the country, so there aren't headlights, there aren't light posts. And you're driving and your headlights make a beam of light. So your beam of light is like this. And just using that for the screen, everything but inside of my arms is relevant. Everything outside is not. So like all the people here on this door, the role models and transmissions and a photo of myself in a certain state. But like everything that's covered by this arm and outside of here, and this painting is irrelevant. And all that's relevant is in these headlights. And so when you're training a horse, when some people train horses, there's blinders on the horses, so they only walk in a straight direction. And taking away all the comments about how animals should be treated and horses living free, there are beings of service. In work or in life, we can be of service, and a case can be made for the being who incarnated as a horse to be of service and to choose a life where they allow those things. Let's just say it's ethical and moral for the time being for that example, so people don't get triggered. You had blinders on a horse, and you're driving that horse, and you're like, horse, go left. Horse, let's go right, please. And of course, you're treating the horse well, grooming it, feeding it well. You're the soul, and the horse is you, your body, your mind. You are all things, but most of us feel that the you, that the they, that the I am, is the body, mind, and the spirit is some outside thing that hopefully comes in and gets integrated. So when we're learning, those blinders help us focus on the information that is relevant. So for example, it isn't really relevant for this body mind to learn underwater basket weaving. So, I could just sit and channel and receive information and weave baskets and hold breath and do it at the gym or some pool or my hot tub and underwater basket weave. But it's not relevant for me. It's not something I choose. And there's a few ways of knowing that. With open chakras and alignment integration and practice, because this is a skill and high accuracy, you can just, what do I need to know? Or what is it? And if you're super open, you can just learn anything like the Matrix. If you're generally open, like most of us are, it's like a game of Mario, where what's the very next thing I have to do? And the next thing after that. And the space I just walked out, that thing falls away. And then on the path, the next thing appears, the next thing appears, the next thing. And you just know the next thing at any one time. And because the world changes consistently, new information is created, companies are created and destroyed, people are created and destroyed, their bodies generally, physical bodies, and all these things shift. Technology gets developed, technology becomes obsolete, there's a glitch, there's a hacking, there's an attack, there's a whatever, there's a revelation, somebody in your life changes, comes, leaves. That process of what am I doing now? I'm only focusing on this. And in this moment of now, what am I doing? Am I changing? Am I transitioning? Am I maintaining? Or is there a new doing? Mm-hmm. And the balance is, for those of us with a very open third eye and a generally open crown chakra, but not a lot of other clarity and not having worked through our stuff, we can see into the future and we can get locked in the past, but what about the present? Right. And so the subtitle of my book that had Create Reality was originally entitled Become Enlightened, because from most standard definitions of enlightenment, when somebody is enlightened, they're on a continuum, they've passed a threshold, and they are not driven by emotional reactivity, and they are present. Now, there's volumes to be said about enlightenment, and I'm not going to try to pick apart what's right, what's wrong, how what I said could have been worded differently. But using that very basic secular definition I just provided, when you can be at that state, and you don't have to maintain it. It's much easier to get there than to stay there, including through all life's challenges. But especially when you have a major decision, should I speak this truth at work or not, to use our current example? Should I work on embodying courage in this real world example and then act on that? Try or achieve, do or do not, right? Get in that state. It's important. This is real life. Pop quiz, whatever you want to call it. And when you're in that state, when you're still, when you're aligned, when you're as awake as you can, when you're not emotionally reactive, you get to make a choice. Ask the question, get the answer. And if you really are unable to do that, and you know deep down you're unable to do that, then either delay the decision, usually this is from being emotional reactivity, wanting to send that email, or get help. And so where a mentor comes in is somebody who can walk the walk. I don't say somebody who walks the walk every minute of the day, because you take an Olympic swimmer, you starve them and give them no sleep for a week. Let's see how well they do, right? So even the greatest among us, many of the greatest among us, not all, but many of the greatest among us still deal with our humanity. So you're going to find a mentor who can't be in that, embody that. Maybe that mentor is spirit coming through a random person in 1 minute of conversation. Maybe that mentor is somebody who agrees to meet with you every single week, whether you give them the energy of money or not. Maybe a mentor is somebody on YouTube who you've never met, who may not be in their body anymore. So defining a mentor, I think, should be very, very loose. And I feel that all of us can have mentors all the time. Another great book for seeing the universe as our mentor and learning how to do that is The Alchemist by Pablo Coelho.
I love that book.
It gives a great transmission into understanding omens. And one of his other books, Warrior of the Light, discusses this too. And when you learn to communicate with the universe, learn to read signs from the universe, and I have one I want to share that's cool that I'm going to share right after this.
Yeah.
The universe becomes your mentor. And then you realize, well, we're all one anyway. It's all you anyway. So you're your own mentor. And then, as long as your ego doesn't get activated with that, you can just ask for a sign and receive it.
Yeah.
Today, my mentor was this Nerf dart. And in a lot of the videos, I talk about Nerf darts. The first object since high school that I moved telekinetically was a Nerf dart. And that's a very exciting story that would take a while to do proper justice to. And a lot of synchronicities, a lot of good stuff. And whenever I have a thought or knowing that's very significant, I see one. And almost all the time it's blue and orange. And it's not in a location where I find Nerf darts often, where I see Nerf dart guns laying around. There was a time when I had 3 Nerf darts with me in my car. I left or lost one, and I only had 2. I was walking around Stanford. I hadn't been to Stanford in months. Right in the middle of a path that was in front of a building where I hadn't been in many, many months was a Nerf dart. And it completed the set of 3. And back in my car and near my car, there was no other Nerf dart. So what I was thinking and feeling this morning was related to my own truth of finding my own inner strength and claiming that, and being okay with the ebb and flow of energetic rhythms and allowing things to be what they were based on circumstances. And I had been fierce with somebody and embodied my truth and courage last night, keeping all this on theme. And I was fierce with them. This was a person who was a healer. They were very irresponsible, and there were a lot of side effects and consequences because of their actions and lack of actions. And they had enough knowledge to take other actions. And I just pretty much said, you were irresponsible. You were irresponsible. You need to make amends. Here's how you can make amends. And it wasn't like the kind of love that's, oh, I love you. It's okay. Everything's all right. It was the, I love you. And I love my sisters and brothers out there. If you want to be of service in this profession, you need to be responsible and mature. And that's a kind of love that is a protective love, protecting that person from getting sued, protecting people in the world from encountering an individual who wants to be a healer but isn't super responsible with it. And so as I was going for a walk, and that healer was learning, and hopefully people won't be too damaged, but things happen and we choose what will happen before this life, so it is what it is. But I was feeling into the okayness of me doing that, because I didn't grow up in an environment where it was okay to speak my truth that was contrary to the truth of a being who had power over me in my presence. And being just very general to be considerate of everybody, and knowing that all of us grow over time, and how people were and isn't how they are always. So when I was feeling into that was okay, and don't go to the flashbacks of that scenario and relive those things and keep up the loop of trauma of being stuck in a memory that just creates more emotions because we relive it. Think about how I want the next 2 hours to go, the next hour, the next 10 minutes. Visualize, create, manifest, do all the principles of positive emotions, seeing what we want to create, seeing what we want to feel. And then instantly we feel that stuff because of mirroring and mirror neurons and what we visualize, we experience. And also just getting in the habit of, oh, there's some suffering. Can you choose to not suffer? And can you plant two trees with one seed and make a choice to use your awareness, your focus, your visualizations, your choices, your mental voice, however much effort it may take you, it takes much less over time, brain plasticity, to practice what you want to perform, to live what you want to create, and to condition yourself of the habit of, you go to a memory that doesn't serve you to be in that memory. You're not trying to get facts and data to make a decision. You're habitually going to a place, and that place makes you suffer in anger or whatever. And so in choosing how I wanted to focus, and even how I wanted this conversation between us to go, when I was making that shift, and it was about to take, but my ego mind was fear, not certain. Can I go over the scenario? Was it safe for me to do that? The Smurf dart came up when I was in my certainty. And they're always positive and spiritual aligning. And so I was oscillating between the fear and the, I really can do this. When I was 79, 80%, I can do this. I can focus on positive reality, what I want to create, condition myself to not go back to the ego's, oh, was it safe to do that? This showed up, and it's like, yeah, safe, you're good. Synchronicity, right? Yeah. Synchronicity. Focus on the thoughts you're experiencing when the synchronicity occurred, because ...
Right. I mean, we have everything within us already, and it's just a matter of having that.
And trust. As I say that, I'm moving because it's what? So as far as embodiment goes, I needed to move and let some vertebrae slide, because standing in that fierceness and talking about it and experiencing the challenges in my own emotional system and the beating of my heart and cortisol, when I told the story, I still felt a bit. And so I felt my system lock up and freeze a tiny bit, but I still, spoke truth. And I'm like, oh, I'm locked up here and below, and I'm open here and above. So heart was half and half. And I just kind of muscled through it with will while staying in alignment. Like, oh, okay, what does the body need? And so in that, I gratefully failed to completely embody courage, because I allowed my amygdala to take over and freeze the lower parts of my physical body and parts of my psychology. And so, it's wonderful that I experienced that failure to fully embody it, because as somebody who wants to push the boundaries of magic and fully live and walk my talk And just because I channel information doesn't mean I've mastered it my whole life until the date of channeling. Often I channel something that I need to start to do. So at whatever percent you embody courage every day, and whatever percent I embody it, the fact that we're having this conversation means we're ready for more to come in. And as it comes in, we have to practice. And unless we are 100% at our performance level every single time, we're at less than 100%. And less than 100% means, what is that gap? Let's notice that gap. You normally have a mile time of 7 minutes. Today it took you 12 minutes. Why? Why is that gap there? Or vice versa. You normally can run a mile in 6 minutes, and today you ran it at 5.5 minutes. You know, what was that gap in performance, but a good gap that enables you to transcend and perform higher? So I think it's, it's good to challenge ourselves. It's good to feel these challenges. It's good to notice when we aren't in perfect alignment, when we haven't dotted all the I's, crossed all the T's, because this takes the effort out of shifting from shame and guilt into forgiveness, which can be kind of hard. And it mixes that middle step of reason. And when you have reason, you can step out of things and understand things mentally. And then the mind can be the tool that integrates. So with the information we choose to learn, just to wrap everything up, come full circle with the horse blinders, what we choose to learn should be that which helps us integrate what we know to be spiritually true and what we have physically embodied on this earth plane. So not only is the spirit of the heavens, but we take the spirit down to the earth and we integrate it. And what Dummenher says is we spiritualize matter. And many telekinesis teachers say, you don't move the thing, you are the thing that moves, / infuse the thing with chi, spiritual vital life force energy, prana, ki, and move it with chi because you are chi, or you have more control over chi than, say, your will over the world to make the world act in a way which you feel is rationally impossible. So in that, there's multiple ways to success of telekinesis. There's multiple ways to success of embodiment, of courage, of discernment, of channeling, of truth. And to answer your question in the previous exchange we had, the more you do that, and the more you look into yourself, the more you can realize what your truth is, by what takes you into and out of alignment. And the mastery over the earth realm gift is understanding the different frequencies. So 6th chakra frequency is high, earth frequency is low and slow. So this thing called patience comes in when you know, say, that your highest truth is to be in a certain career that you're not in, but you understand there's a certain pacing to things. That pacing is you get clear, you find a company or organization, you have conversations, you learn things, choices are made, effort is made, time passes, and then you're in the new job. Maybe there's more success and failure and a lot of complexity. Now, that doesn't mean it always has to take a long amount of time, 2 years, 10 years, whatever. If you're at a very high vibration, difference in frequency, and you're a very good manifester, in a second, you can go from career A to career B. I was talking with somebody at the Hive Global Leaders Summit, and this is a woman who sold her company, did really well, vacationed for a year and a half, was traveling all over the place. And then one day in a beautiful location near a waterfall, after being in kind of a shack that had its roof blown off during a cyclone the day before, she realized she wants to be in a lot of financial abundance. So she got on a plane, went to New York, sat down with some friends who were in good positions, asked for a job of high salary, got that job, and within like 72 hours went from not working at all to completely changing of a lifestyle and working full-time in a lucrative career that was aligned with her values. So the value of learning magic in these models and learning manifestation and maturing and being able to surrender and not being attached to your ego or your mind or your story, being a certain way and being totally present, you can make those radical shifts instantly and do something in 3 days that your mind might say needs 3 months or 3 years.
Yeah. Well, it's quantum leaping to the next level of where you want to be. It's the prime example. You just defined it with that example, with that woman. Anyone can make a shift with how they're thinking about their own story. It's just a matter of how do you detach yourself within that previous story in order to build a current one. based on where you really want to go and what you want to create. So I love that you spoke about that particular example, because there's a lot of people that are planning quite so far ahead, but then when it doesn't happen in one particular way, the majority of people get frustrated when the blueprint that they had in their mind didn't quite work out, or some other thing that the universe has planned for them comes along. But in truth, it is much, much better than having to resist that one particular gift that the universe is presenting them. So discerning becomes a huge part of their own story. But really, when you follow your bliss and you follow the signs, just like the Nerf dart that you spoke of as an example, it's an affirmation of where you are currently and following your bliss, because there are signs from the universe all over the place, and it is in abundance. And once we learn how to recognize what some of these signs are, we have inspiration to act in courage. While you're acting in inspiration, those are the actions that will propel you to jump forward into the next quantum leap of where you want to be. Because somebody could just make actions and plans all the time, but if they're not in inspired action, if they're not acting in inspiration and in courage and in alignment with their own truth, then it can move forward in a particular way, but it's not within their own truth, right?
Right. And when we're looking at these things of discernment, sorry, I see a little bit of glare from the light. There we go. When we're considering, discernment, we want to be very aware of how much we need to control things. And it's okay to feel a need for control. We're all born pooping our pants, and we learn everything along the way. And so, until you're a floating ball of light that can materialize and levitate a cat and make it fart sprinkles, you've got stuff to learn. Until you're creating planets, you've got stuff to learn. Until you can, like Babaji, materialize a palace in half a second, you've got stuff to learn. Mm-hmm. So it's fine to need to learn things, and it's fine to feel a need to control. There's a fabulous book by Michael Singer called The Surrender Experiment, and he also wrote The Untethered Soul. And if you read The Surrender Experiment or listen to it, there's an excellent narrator. You feel his circumstances when he talks about his own life, when he talks about the opportunity to surrender and change careers or take a leap of faith or deal with some very challenging, daunting, Abraham wrestling with the angel, Buddha being confronted by the devil types of scenarios. Not the dark night of the soul, Saturn return that a lot of us face, that's just like life kicking your butt, but you're already on a good path, and you're tempted, and you're challenged, and you're tempted, and you're challenged, and what do? Do you go back to your old habits that maybe you thought you needed to cope but are maladaptive and hurt you? Or do you stay true to your principles while being fair and kind to yourself? It's a very careful balance. Mm-hmm. And the world's mystical texts and religions, with all of the faults we can find in some of their leaders and translations and interpretations, a lot of them and a lot of sacred texts for us do a great job in saying, here's something for the rational mind, rules what you do. Don't get drunk every night if you're upset, get help, type of thing. Mm-hmm. So when you're at the situation where you feel aligned and aware enough to make a decision and follow through with that decision, like I need to leave the startup and pursue what it means to live a spiritual life and take care of myself professionally. What are the mental elements? I didn't send that letter to my co-founder until 3 to 4 weeks after I had that realization. Now I probably would have sent it within 24 hours and just wanted to make sure, major life decision, give your body a little time, even though you feel, you might have super knowing. And then again, eventually maybe you have super knowing and you feel alignment and you're like, I'm going to make the decision to change genders, to get a tattoo, to remove a tattoo, to have a baby, to enter a relationship, to leave a relationship, to stop mourning, to start mourning. So even mourning, mourning, you've lost somebody close to you.
Yeah.
And so saying that, I can tell in time, there's people who hear that and they wonder if they should continue. And just live that truth. If you were activated when you heard that and you need to take time for yourself, take time. Mm-hmm. If, however, you have been activated and you need to stop mourning and move on, here's your permission slip. And so with all these things, you have the rational mind, and then you have the soul and the trusting. And how do we know when we need to surrender and do the rational mind? For example, you're back to that earlier example, just to keep things really simple and cliche, because we can all make things more complex. You're a single parent. You have to tell the truth. The truth would get you and a close friend who's also a single parent fired. And you know, for whatever reason, it would take you at least 3 months to find a job, and you don't have savings to cover food expenses during that time. So what do? Do you surrender to the universe and feel, oh, I must tell the truth because somebody told me to? Or do you engage your rational mind? And it's the tricky thing, because we know magic is real, and we're like, well, I'll just pray and manifest, and then a new job, twice my salary will be offered to me. So this is where validation comes in. We can talk about discernment, but validation is the material world reality reflection. And fully surrendering means accepting all outcomes, not just that because something was offered or suggested to you, it's the right thing for you. If I gave you a needle full of heroin and say, hey, shoot up, surrender to my will, you might want to sit for a second before doing that. And, I hope to not be in a situation to do that. But, if you think about or feel into what is validation, validation is, say you're making a statement of fact that, this is a phone plus other things. That's a fact. You can validate that by taking this around the world and most people agreeing, yeah, that's a phone. Mm-hmm. But if I say this is a chicken, that would be very hard to validate. I could make a case for I could make a case for being a chicken. I could give you a bunch of philosophy, find or create some photos, make a cool animated series, name my phone Chicken. Maybe the meme would take over. People say, yeah, I want to make sure to bring my chicken with me in case somebody calls. And then the world has changed. But until that happens, this is a phone. And so the truth, and this is hugely important if somebody's ever experiencing mania or using mind-altering substances, whether they're called plant medicines, drugs, entheogens, whatever, high on life, deprived of sleep, had a major life event, positive or negative. The validation is what the world says. And even though we have like the Steve Jobs and the Martin Luther King and the Oprah Winfrey's and the trailblazers who are like, live your truth no matter the opposition, that doesn't mean do what you want because you're excited and you feel like it and everyone else tells you no. Using the shooting up in heroin example, very easy to have somebody who says, oh my gosh, I want to shoot up. I shot up yesterday and it was great. If they come out to most of the world and say that, most of the world will say, we do not validate that as the best thing for you at this time, in most situations. So the value of multiple mentors, multiple living human mentors that are intelligent, that don't want to take advantage of or manipulate you, that are there in service to you in real time, 3 to 5 opinions for any major life decision, should I be courageous here, is I think really critical so we can validate it. Training wheels, once you have validated through your own life experience that you have good judgment and you have good successes and you can trust your intuition, your decisiveness, cool. However, as today's date is like September 10th of 2018, right now there's these news about Elon Musk and Tesla and Twitter and 420 and stock prices and all that stuff. And so even somebody who a lot of people look up to, who has had a lot of successes, for whatever reasons, he made a mistake. He did not have good judgment or good discernment according to the opinions of many people. Now, what actually happened, what actually will happen, did he know what he was doing? Did he foresee it? Did he not? That's not for this podcast to discuss. And I would say that's not for me to discuss. And I think that goes to show, though, no matter who you are, what you're doing, what you have done, we all can make mistakes. And so having that validation, that discernment, that mentoring, that support is critical. We're in the age of the Maitreya, the collective awakening, the collective Messiah. It's not, I am the Messiah, it's we are the Messiah. And while everybody is the hero and, at higher levels, the villain of their own story, as one person who's the president of the Integral Center once said, the era of the guru is over. And what that means is don't surrender your will to one person for life. Understand that we are collective. And maybe one person takes the role of guru in a traditional sense. I've been requested to take that role. People have bowed to me and called me that in the past. And so I held that vibration for a time for them without saying, oh, this is a life role. I'm going to be a guru and, be in India or be somewhere and build an ashram and have people call me God and worship me. Now, there's advantage to that. If you do that to somebody, you give them power, you see them as divine, they can do higher level miracles than otherwise. But the problem for most of us with trying to take that seat or looking for somebody who's taking that seat for a long period of time is it depletes us of our will, and it can raise somebody's power so much that that person has any wounding not resolved, any psychological maturity not resolved, any growing up not fully done. There's a danger, and the danger is they can abuse their power, etc. So the guru vibration, if anybody feels that's necessary for them to hold or for others to hold, look at it like a situation. In certain situations, you're the teacher, in certain, you're the student. In certain, you're on the toilet, in certain, you're making love. And realize that it takes a lot for an individual being to hold the traditional guru. I'm talking Sri Yukteswar level guru, as he was described in Autobiography of a Yogi. There might be many other stories of him, but as he was described in that book, that to me is an ideal guru, right? Unless you or somebody you know can hold that level all the time, it's a hat that they wear and a hat that goes off. And so understanding that we're in a collective awakening is really, really critical, because then you stand up in your courage and you allow others to, and you see others to, and you know at what point in your life is right for A or B. Again, you're riding a bike with training wheels. Maybe it's good to see your mentor, your guru, your superior, the person you look up to, and follow exactly what they say. Your digestive health is bad, you follow exactly what your nutritionist says. Your spiritual life isn't ideal. Maybe you haven't validated your own judgment, discernment, growth, etc., to make your own decisions related to that without a lot of support, validation, etc. So this is really expanding quite a bit, and I can feel another question for you. But I'm really glad we're covering it, because this is feeling like an excellent episode.
Yeah. Well, it's like you see somebody riding a mountain bike over there and you got training wheels on you, right? It's like, oh, okay, that's where they're at.
Yeah, and I want to hear what you want to say next, but the thing for that is that you are enough. Right? Because if that person riding that bike, maybe they've been riding it for 18 years. Maybe they received an inheritance or a stroke of inspiration to have a job, triple your salary. Maybe they won the lottery. Maybe they were coached by, a gold medalist biker person. Maybe you tore up your leg last month. There's so many reasons why they have a mountain bike and you have training wheels. We have to accept and realize they're living their unique sliver of unity, and so are you. And you don't have to be somebody else. You are you, and that is perfect. And if you want to ride a mountain bike, map it out, plan it out, validate. And while you can visualize everything of every timeline in reality now, until you can materialize a palace in half a second, you have a ways to go in your manifestation ability, and realize that those slower earth frequencies may come into play, and it may take you time, it may be significant time, and other things to ride that mountain bike and be at peace and surrender with that. We incarnated into this earth to include earth frequencies in our vibration, or else we would not have made this choice. And given that, we need to accept that choice. You shoot up with heroin, you eat a donut, you drink a glass of water, you kiss that person. Those were all choices you made, and you have to live with those choices. And that's reality. And while we can see the probable and possible realities that may be different in some way, even though in unity everything's the same, but while in duality, which is most of our general experience, they may be different, we have to realize we made that choice, live with that choice. You spent your budget on neon glow-in-the-dark swim trunks, and you don't have extra money for a mountain bike. It doesn't matter how good you are. You're not riding a mountain bike unless somebody gives it to you, or other circumstances. So it's accepting reality as it is. And if the truth is you should be a professional singer and you're a tax accountant, you can say, I am living the truth of being a professional singer and being responsible for my choices to cover my bills for my kid. And that actually can be more courageous than just quitting and taking voice lessons and, jumping up on stage and putting a hat out there for money. And I think that's why for most of us, it's good that we grew up in a world where traditional hippies were criticized, because traditional hippies, as wonderful as they were, as much as I've been called that, like, along with things like digital hippie. You know, if you want to master this life, earth frequencies and other energies, including the energy of money, is part of it. And if you want to disown one of those energies, then truly do it and find a community without those energies, as opposed to try to live in a society with them, but not have them part of your experience.
Right.
And you can loop that into healing, into sexuality, into choosing to experience pain, to master yourself in whatever form, you know, all the soup of the world that we're in. And to just wrap up on an unwrapped thread from earlier about experiencing evil, you know, you don't need to experience everything.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't watch violent stuff usually because I know what we watch affects us and fires our motor neurons.
I don't.
But, you know, taking the word torture, you have already experienced giving and receiving all forms of torture because you are all beings at all time. And so if you feel in your experience that's a necessary experience for certain reasons that you feel are true, you can visualize, you can experience fiction. You don't have to experience it here. You can experience it in a way that makes sense. And you really, really, again, want to go to validation or discernment if you're thinking of experiencing something that may not be smart for you to, shooting up heroin, torturing somebody, you know, whatever. Being examples, we can, you know, eating that donut, whatever. Then, you know, go back, validate, ask the mentor. Maybe eating that donut won't mess you up. Maybe if you've just felt, you know, that you had a heroin addiction in the past, you know, could be alcohol, could be weed, whatever. You overcame it. It's been 20 years. You need to know you can beat it. So you check yourself in to a hospital and you get medically supervised people to help you make the choice of what type of heroin to inject and be in the supervision where you overcome the shakes or whatever, and you overcome the impulse and you don't shoot up again for the rest of your life or for 10 more years, but you make a choice to shoot up heroin every 10 years. And that's your authentic choice to do it once and to overcome those feelings of compulsion and addiction. I do not recommend this, but that's where if you have a strong truth or compulsion or something you think is truth but may not be, mental illness or no mental illness, then do the validation thing, do the mentoring thing, get some consensus reality on board. Right. And I learned this the hard way by having somebody who I was mentoring live with me go off medication that they needed, and we had to have an intervention. They had to leave, and they ended up in a psychology ward or a psychiatry ward, and they were locked in against their will because they had a mental health situation that wasn't stable. And the word that came up was consensus reality. So living our truth, you know, for some of us is easy. Like we've seen the videos, we've heard the talks, we know the advice. You know, I should cut my hair. I should move out. I should shave. I should stop shaving. I should tell that person I love them. I should at least spend half an hour a day living my purpose and try to raise that bar every day until it's my life and career path all the time. Like that stuff is easy. The really hard stuff is the stuff that feels scary and uncomfortable. And so by using extreme examples, we see the whole continuum. We see the continuum of it is right for me to be paleo, be vegan, be whatever today, not for the rest of my life, because tomorrow it's a new reality, but it's right for me to do this. And it's wrong for me to shoot up with heroin 25 times in one day. I don't know if I could make it. Maybe it'd have to be a smell dose. I've never done it. I don't plan to. But, you know, by having those two extreme examples, it becomes much easier to say, I need to speak up at work. I need to decide to change careers. Okay, that's a decision. What's slightly more courage requiring, but not destroy the foundations of your life? I need to invest 30 minutes. I need to confront that memory. I need to talk to that person. I need to fill out this worksheet. I need to buy that book. I need to hire that coach, that advisor, enroll in that course, taking step by step, like in Mario, you jump on the platform, the last one disappears. Jump on the platform, the last one disappears. And just taking that next step.
Yeah, I think it's important that you mentioned consensus reality because I am learning a lot more about psychology and becoming like, you know, how to be there for other people as a counselor professionally later on. And when I hear stories about like not stories, but like examples like that, it, you know, if somebody knows that they are struggling with whatever, either that could be a donut addiction every day, or a lot of people are addicted to work, you know. Gabor Mate talks about addiction quite often, he's like an addiction expert, and like anyone could be like drawn to one big thing, and just like dive right into it, and then have an excess of that. So how to maintain balance, and I love that you speak about that, because it can't just be the one thing, right? It could be like internet addiction. It could be the phone. Social media is such a big thing now. We're always on.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so
Yeah, there's a cool hack for addiction. There's actually a few excellent cures that I found because I had people very close to me experience those energies. And so if anybody just wants something to jump into and look into right away, if you have a budget, a few $1,000s, neurofeedback, it's a great way to see what your brain is doing and get it online. If you have another few $1,000s, get a brain scan. The one that I got, because I just wanted the data, it felt like something that was smart to get every 5-10 years, at a place called Amen Clinics, AMEN. And they're very, very thorough. I don't think they take insurance. Last I checked, they were $5,000. But they do very intensive, really high quality, generally non-toxic brain scans and get a lot of survey data and spend a lot of time with you. And they're known for treating very successfully ADD, addiction, autism, major trauma, stroke. So if you have or can obtain the funds and it's a medically significant issue and you want to resolve addiction in a natural, healthy, integrative way with really good data, go those routes. Acupuncture can be really helpful for addiction. And actually, and this, not health advice, just entertainment, ask your health professional, but taking L-DOPA.
Professional. Yeah, a mental health professional, a doctor.
Yeah, for all this stuff, yeah. There's a substance called L-DOPA that can generate dopamine, and L-tyrosine can. And a lot of people, especially now, are using cannabis. Cannabis can deplete tyrosine. Getting the munchies, especially for dairy products, helps rebuild it.
Yeah.
And so tyrosine helps replenish the dopamine. 5-HTP can help replenish the serotonin. You generally need carbs for those. And so often when people are like, I don't feel good, should I use more of the thing that I'm addicted to? Or, for porn or for whatever the addiction is, the social media, often dopamine circuits are involved. And so learning about those, finding a smart, intelligent, well-rated, trustworthy, experienced professional who knows you to talk about this stuff with is also really helpful. And it doesn't take shame. I had a friend who was concerned about the vibrations of rehab, and they thought they needed it, but they felt shame and they couldn't disrupt their life routine. And somebody manifested in their life a person who needed rehab and chose rehab and talked about it publicly. And then, the person A didn't have to experience everything, like you said about what you were told. And through person B who experienced it, they could receive that transmission and realize, oh, I go down this path. I may need to take those actions. I don't want to take those actions, but a month or 3 plus whatever words associated with whoever finds out is worth it compared to the course of a life. And I think if somebody's at the point where you feel like you don't have the will or the resources to do those other suggestions, just go to rehab and you'll be fixed in a month or 2 if it's a good rehab place. If people need it, from those friends, I got some resources that I could share for places all around the world. So it's back to the theme of courage. If you need to do something for the betterment of your life, do it. You don't have to post about it on social media.
Right.
And how many people on social media post about every bowel movement they have? Most people only talk about what they want the world to know. And maybe you tell 1 or 2 people, maybe more. But if you have to make a choice like that, that's a mature and intelligent choice. If you truly need it, just do it. And you'll be on the track that you want to be on. And it's actually easier than driving to neurofeedback all the time, taking certain supplements all the time, getting a ton of blood tests, paying a ton of money for scans, even though, all those things together would be ideal. If only one action can be taken, like if you're in a panic attack, if only one action can be taken, what has the most impact? Deep breathing, EFT, cold ice pack on the forehead to pull blood out of the amygdala so you're less in fight or flight mode. We all have standard operating procedures that we know. Okay, you see somebody bleeding on a street and you don't know what to do. The default standard operating procedure, a military term, is call 911. Right? Most of us default to that. So knowing what is the SOP, the standard operating procedure for if you are stuck and you don't feel the inner strength to do what your mind knows is ideal, but you don't feel the will or whatever.
Exactly.
And usually it's what takes the least amount of activation energy and the least amount of courage. Because while it's good to have courage and it's good to be an Olympian, you know, we're different every day. And the reason we're different is to experience the variety of this world.
Yes.
Which for most of us includes sleeping and pooping and eating and walking and talking.
Yeah, all the basics of life. Okay, well, I think we talked about a lot of things and covered a lot of information about courage and embodying courage in our daily life. How can people get the book Magic is Real? And
thank you so much.
Maybe you could speak about that and how people can get it, what's in it, what's covered in the book, all that jazz.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I'll add that. So the title is and all that jazz. Such a good song. So the title is Magic is Real: How to Create Reality, Manifest Miracles, and Make Spirituality Fun Again. Book 1 of 7. As of today, it's available on Kindle. Very soon, it should be available as a paperback book and as a really epic Audible book with professional voice acting, soundtrack, symphony, sound effects. Really amazing. I directed it. It was a sizable investment financially, but I had never heard an audiobook that had this level of quality. Some had a little music, some had, you know, multiple voice actors, but this one, I just wanted to be epic and entertainment and fun and a journey. So I'm really proud of the Audible book. Yeah, I know you've heard some of it. So I hope that'll be online soon. There's a few people I'm expecting to hear things from, and then it'll be online. So probably by September 20th, I would think at the latest. So by the time most people see this.
Nice.
So it's on Amazon, and if you have Kindle Unlimited, it's free. If not, I think it's I'm probably going to price it at like $7.77. And no, not probably. I am.
Oh, all right.
All right. And there's a few ways people can get in touch. So the website is magicalgoldenage.com. And I'll have some writing up there. I'll have a wizard school people are signing up for. I do newsletter stuff. I try to have things that are very relevant. I'm building an open sourced magical Wikipedia. So all the mystery traditions, all the techniques, spells, astrological and sacred geometry correspondences and definition, library of gods and goddesses, all that stuff. I want to include a whole big compendium. Some of it will have to have restricted access for reasons mentioned before. And so that'll be really cool. And then I'm going to do a thing called group monthly spells, similar to hamas and pujas that Amma provides.
Oh, nice.
Say you want extra energies for financial abundance or physical healing or clarity in your life. You can subscribe to something where I will do magic, do prayer, do manifestation for you in these different categories. So the website's still under construction as of today, September 10, 2018. So all those things are getting built over time. But if you just go to the website and sign up, you'll hear about those. On Facebook, people can follow me, facebook.com/David Magic Solomon. I post pretty regularly, and I try to only post things that are relevant to this. My YouTube channel is youtube.com/magicisreal. And I'm trying not to make too many other things, but I have one more thing, and that's patreon.com/magicaljoy. And at patreon.com/magicaljoy, that's already set up to receive the energy of money. And since I'm in this earth plane, I need to receive that energy in order to do a lot of things, or at least I believe I do, so that's true. And travel to Damanhur, Machu Picchu, Mount Fuji, work with very amazing high-level teachers, have professional video editors, get books printed, travel to speaking engagements, you know, all the stuff of the material world. And so the more of that energy that comes in, the more I can be of service in different ways, including building several temples, which is outlined in my book, creating an Atlantean city in 2041, which is planned, and a few other things. So very, very grateful for any energies that come in, whether it's a comment on a social media post, a subscription, an email, financial resources, or just love. Anytime you think of somebody, you send them love and you send them energies. So what is all this stuff about? So there's 7 books of Magic is Real, and the first 3 are written, and the first one is fully edited and formatted and released. The next 2 are coming soon. So the whole ecosystem of information I'm building has several levels, and the first level is just content from me. So things that I channel, things that I research in 28 chronological years of this incarnation related to all types of magic. What I can recover of 563,000 years of solar memory and soul memory, that's a whole thing that I think was discussed in the past interviews on the Positive Head podcast with Brandon Beecham and on my website. And so what I try to do for people is I try to create an education that integrates everything using the umbrella term of magic as a pathway of spiritual ascension and awakening to our true divine nature. So what that means is I'll write essays, I'll give tons of exercises, I'll give breathing techniques, I'll talk about chi, I'll give tons of references to people like Barbara Brennan, who I respect and who have done great work out there in the world. I'll give artwork, so there's a lot of my paintings. This isn't one of my paintings, but that is, and we'll do an art episode some other time.
Okay.
Lovely Buddha in the background, that isn't mine, and this is from Nora Mendoza, but paintings can carry transmission by a wonderful being named Falco Tarasco, who I talk about in my book. He was a founder of Dom and Her, and a photo of his younger body self there. Wow. And so in the book, there's all these transmissions, there's all these activations, there's all these bits of research, there's a little bit of fiction, one chapter, there's some biographical stories, there's a lot of stuff. And the book is a mystery school. In other books that are coming out, I have a Science of Miracles chapter, miracles like the Virgin of Guadalupe, a painting that NASA has detected a heartbeat on, that has allegedly survived multiple explosions unscathed, and other miracles that like defy reality as most people know it, that have a lot of validations, newspaper articles, credible witnesses, many witnesses, etc. I mentioned a few other things about the website and my personal page. So how people will grow if they engage with my material, one, they'll get validation because I try to cite as many sources as I can. And while I don't write like Dean Radin, who writes in an academic paper citation format, I give so many references that the curious student or skeptic or dedicated seeker can do their own research and look down the rabbit hole and see where this stuff came from. And if they feel aligned to focusing on healing specifically, they can say, cool, David's is X% healing specifically, Barbara Brennan's is much more, I'm gonna study her for a bit, which is great. We're in this collective thing. So there's ways of working together. I do magical masterminds, which are starting soon, where people can sign up on my website or if they message me directly, which are webinars with Q&A and a lot of direct one-on-one interaction on how do you take magic, the science of applied consciousness, learning mystical abilities, understanding ritual, channeling, divine beings, astral projection, levitation, telekinesis, telepathy, psychic skills, all of it, how to take all those skills, fully understand them and embodiment, and apply it to day-to-day life with health, with business, with money, with physical fitness, with relationships. This is reality, so it covers everything.
Nice.
I work with people one-on-one on occasion. Generally, I work with people when we can talk once or twice a week on a consistent basis and really help them grow. So that relationship isn't a traditional guru relationship, but the people who get the most results are people who want to receive direction and want to confront themselves and just really grow and have somebody be real with them. So it can be pretty intense. I live in Palo Alto, and occasionally people visit me here, but the most sessions I do are over the phone. And I actually don't do video sessions too often because for most people, it's better to visualize what is being offered, whether it's a past life regression or a healing visualization for their own body or an element of their past or future. So I do phone sessions on a case-by-case basis. And then I'm also working on building a community. So this can often be through comments of posts that I write, but also online. Eventually I'll build stuff where people can just talk about their stories, their miracles, their spiritual growth, get buddies. In the masterminds, this is a huge thing of having a bit of a buddy system in a group to ensure you always have people you're compatible with who can help you, who can hold you accountable, who you can talk about these exciting experiences with, who you can integrate experiences with. And then of course, some things that I have to be careful how I talk about, but psychedelic integration is big for our community. A lot of people are using these substances with and without guidance. And there's a lot I have personally experienced and can share with the usual disclaimers to help people who have chosen to use those substances to integrate them. And if they choose to use them in the future, to provide information and sources that claim to say, here's responsible and safe uses compared to otherwise. Mm-hmm. So that I think a lot of people will be curious about. Some of the workshops that I teach in person, I can travel anywhere to teach, and online. I do money magic. People have gotten really good results with that. I do third eye openings. I can do activations over the phone or in person or on video. I'm teaching mystical skills, so I can usually channel how to do any mystical skill at will. Helping people with their life purpose and mission and vision. That's huge. And that's from my days receiving and providing just very traditional high-level life coaching, but doing that in a spiritual context. And then that occasionally bleeds over to business, where for a business organization, individual business person in the work setting, how to integrate spirituality and professionalism. And I think this will be a big way I serve in the future. I don't think I know. Ego likes to be there, but then it realizes, oh, sorry, I shouldn't have done that. So in the future, what does it mean to travel to an office and cleanse energy? What does it mean to use terminology and ground it? So instead of saying, hey, you guys, your auras are, all over the place, saying, hey, everybody, let's be aware of the level of connectedness we feel and the level of emotional awareness we feel. And let's talk about entrainment, and let's talk about body language, right? And so they're the same thing in terms of having harmony in an office space. One uses super woo-woo language. The other might have similar terms, but grounds it in Western scientific consensus reality terms that, eventually you can talk about at a board meeting and can be fully accepted until everyone's talking about auras and souls and everything else. In my book, I have a curve of magic. It's a continuum where you have a magical maybe, a capable magician, an advanced magician, and no magic. And while no magic people generally aren't my biggest fans, I want to try to serve everybody. I care to serve everybody. And so bringing in rationality, bringing in sources and resources, sharing things to address all audiences, while being understanding that not all audiences are my audience, and being fine with that because there's more than enough people up there sharing advice about these topics. Yeah,
there's a wide range of audiences out in the world, and we get a whole lot of mixed bag of everybody. It's a very interesting thing. Okay, well, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge, your wisdom, the magic that you are putting together. And I'm excited to see you on your journey. And I want to honor you for your time in contributing to our podcast as a guest. And until next time, I guess. So.
Thanks so much, Kat. Until next time, I look forward to our next chat and our next episode. And I'm so grateful to you for this connection and this relationship and this episode. I hope everybody who receives this information grows in some way, feels light, feels love, feels happiness, feels information, and just gets what they wish for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, David.